Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Stay Healthy Knoxville podcast, brought to you by Simply Physio, aimed at helping you live an enjoyable, fit, and healthy life in and around our community of Knoxville, Tennessee. And now, here is your host, Dr. John Mark Chesney.
Hey guys, I'm super excited today to have on the show Zack Kramer. So he is an East Tennessee native. He's head coach and owner of Trinity Strength. Zack is the regional expert in the field of total health. He understands that wellness and all aspects of life are integral in the pursuit of one's health. His diverse experience in education and fitness, in breath and theology form the foundation for his program, which requires members to examine the state of their mental and physical health as well as their understanding of happiness. Zack is an avid learner, patient teacher. He's a father, a husband, and he faithfully lives out the lifestyle he encourages others to seek. Zack is a certified strength and conditioning specialist. He earned his bachelor's degree from Center College, where he also played football, and he also has his master's in divinity from Emory University. He has strong family roots in the area of fitness and sport. His father was a college football coach, and his father, Roy Kramer, was commissioner of the SEC and invented BCS, for better or for worse. But we'll say better because Tennessee back in '98 was the first champs there, the BCS. Well, welcome to the show, Zack.
Thank you.
We love to start off the show just understanding really your journey. I know we've had a chance to speak some and hear some of your backstory, but we'd love to know more of just how you got started and interested in the field, in the arena of fitness and health and performance. So yeah, take us back and tell us how it all got started, Zack.
Man, how it all got started. Honestly, it probably all got started because my cousin, who was about 6 years older than me, wrote me into working out with him when I would visit for the summers, taught me everything I ever needed to know about fitness. Yes, as in what pre-workout to take and how good it feels to do curls.
How old were you?
Probably around 14 when I first started lifting.
Yeah.
Somewhere around freshman in high school. I remember doing things for football in the off season. But yeah, I mean, I kind of enjoyed it during high school. But really when I was in college and started playing football in college, I think I may have ended up liking training during the off season more than actually playing football.
Okay.
I always lived in the weight room in college. Did maybe twice as much. We would get programs put up for us for the week of what to do, and I'd always try to like double the stuff because I just wanted to live in there. So yeah, played football in college, really enjoyed training. Didn't think too much about it after that, and ended up, like you mentioned, ended up going to seminary. I always thought I was going to be a football coach, and all of a sudden, really, this has nothing to do with fitness. But I took a trip to Israel, and coming back from Israel, I just had to go to seminary. So went to seminary for 3 years, and when I was in seminary, that's when I found CrossFit. I was still obsessed with working out and exercising. It's still really competitive from playing college football, looking for something to do, and watched the CrossFit games on YouTube and was like, I can do that. I'll be there in no time. So started dabbling in CrossFit on my own, ended up joining a gym and competing for a while in CrossFit, kind of like the only meathead in seminary at the time, taking classes and competing in CrossFit, and began coaching at the gym I was working out at, and kind of ended up one thing led to another, ended up another gym as a full-time coach, and then moved up here to be closer to family and take over a gym in Knoxville.
So you've been owner of Trinity Strength for how long?
5 years. So we were a CrossFit gym originally, and we've transitioned since then to just Trinity Strength. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I know we were talking a little bit before as far as, even the story behind that, right? And some of your pursuit of continued learning and understanding the human body and how we can best execute, working out in a healthy way that accomplishes the goal. I guess that depends on what the goal is, right?
Yeah.
Take us a little bit back. You got, it sounds like your roots, some after college in like the CrossFit arena, and then that you've developed, maybe changed some of your theory, your understanding. So yeah, tell us some about that too, just in the world of your gym and your own personal pursuit.
Yeah. So as far as personal pursuit, I really got into CrossFit to compete. I mean, I enjoyed every aspect of that and began coaching, but I'm sure you see this in the physical therapy world too. I mean, you always kind of think you know more than you actually do. And so I was coaching a lot and trying to help people. At the same time, I was competing. And at the time, I think at some point, CrossFit took a turn where as people got more competitive and wanted to compete in the CrossFit games, that ended up trickling down into what the method really was on the everyday gym floor and just became a more competitive environment in and out of classes. And I just think eventually, like at some point, you begin to look at that and you realize not everyone there is really there to compete. So they don't necessarily need to be learning how to do the same things that CrossFit competitors need to learn how to do.
So that's played out in, I guess, how Trinity has transitioned from CrossFit into its own like standalone facility, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
I mean, it's definitely somewhat of a process of, what do we hold on to and what do we kind of move away from? We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think one of probably the main differences is we try to designate the intensity now. So CrossFit's definition is constantly varied functional movement performed at high intensity. And you can only really perform high intensity so often. I mean, if you think about kind of the evolution or the origins, kind of the human being, we didn't really just go all out every single day. There was a much more relaxed setting. I mean, obviously it was very, very active, but it was not just sprinting every single day. And so taking that into account, we've tried to create a program that's a little less everyday sprinting, maybe one day a week, all out effort. But the rest of the days of the week are about maintaining health, maintaining joint health, well-being, more zone 2 type training, which is, a little bit just less intense, honestly, like a conversation level type intensity, which we'll talk more about when we talk about breath, but that's definitely the zone where we're actually burning more fat and things like that. There's a lot of science coming out of how lots and lots of high intensity interval training ends up holding on to a lot more fat than burning it. So all that stuff taken into account, it's just like anything else. I mean, I love CrossFit and so there's no way it's just, we're doing something a little bit different now.
Sure.
And I think just like anything, right? Like you wouldn't expect any field that has empirical science behind it to stay the same forever. There's going to be new data coming out, and it's the same way in health and wellness.
As you guys transitioned, just wondering, was there a moment or like when did you feel like the need to maybe change the style of your guys' gym and for why?
Yeah, I'd say there were multiple moments, honestly. I mean, there were moments where CrossFit itself made us a better CrossFit gym as I began thinking about, I remember being with other CrossFit coaches that were much better than I was, calling me out on my coaching and that making me think more about what we were doing at the gym. Are we really helping people or are we not? And I think that's where it all came down to. Every time there's a new moment, it's, okay, am I actually helping people or am I not doing enough to actually help them? And they're kind of getting spit out with injuries that might be unseen to me. And you'll hear that with just a variety of gyms, not just CrossFit, all sorts of different kinds of gyms where you'll hear later on like, oh, so-and-so got hurt, but no one ever actually knew, like they never told anybody.
Sure.
And so as you start to hear stories like that, you can't help but to think, okay, what do I need to adjust? I mean, if you're going to a gym, you're going there to get healthy. Getting injured is the exact opposite of getting healthy.
Yeah. And obviously, things happen. Like, I tell people if I had to choose an injury, I'd rather it be an injury of overactivity versus underactivity, because underactivity injuries typically are in the form of heart disease, stroke, those type of illnesses, right? So I'd much rather have...
but at the same time, if you have somebody coming in, they're finally being active again, the last thing you want to have happen is something to happen as they're being active to get hurt and then be back on the sidelines.
There's definitely a balance, there too, between that as well, where you want to encourage people to be active and to find health. A huge part of health is exercising, right? So how do we keep people in the game? So
I think it's hard because a lot of the times what's good for us in activity is kind of boring. I mean, this is America, so more is always better. And so when we get into exercise, a lot of people just think, well, if I'm going to exercise, I'm going to go for it. And that just doesn't always translate in the long run.
Sure. And I just saw recently the ACSM released, I'm pretty sure it was ACSM, updated their recommendations for exercise. And for the longest time, it had been, I believe it's 150 minutes of exercise a week. But they didn't have any type of designation on like really intensity, because there's a lot of research that's, come out that really shows that, having some level of, high intensity, like the benefits, right? And like in high intensity, like pushing yourself, right? For a shorter period of time where you can get the benefits of, a workout in much less, time. But they came out with like a second level, and I can't remember exactly the specific, but it includes like, hey, if, 150 minutes is still recommended of moderate level activity, but if you're doing a higher level activity, then you only, maybe it's 45, or I can't remember exactly what it is, but I thought it was good that they updated that to reflect, just the evidence that's been out for a long time,
right?
As far as the benefit.
I think more and more is going to go to, you definitely need to include high intensity training into your week or like 10-day kind of spectrum at some point, but it's going to end up becoming more and more of you really need to be active as much as possible throughout your day moving, which is what I tell people more than anything. Is like, if you're sitting and you're on your computer, try to sit in hero's pose or with your legs crossed or stand or move around. Don't just stand all day either. I mean, try to sit in different positions or just walk around. I mean, I think that's really what is the best thing you can do for yourself, because really if you go into the gym and you do 20 minutes all out max heart rate effort, but then you go back and you sit for 8 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, how much are you really doing for yourself?
Yeah. On that topic, when people ask me about posture, it's like, posture, like, when I'm sitting or, things like that, it's like, well, there's that ideal, positioning, ergonomics, and those, types of things that we can talk about. But ultimately, the best posture is the next posture.
Right.
is, exactly, telling the same thing.
That's awesome.
You gotta change. Like, the human body is not made to be in one position. And, you think about the development of the human race, like it's not until recently, like, the invention of the computer is relatively a recent invention, right? Before that we were, hunters and gatherers. I was thinking about that before when you're talking about like, hunter and gatherers, like there's the whole aspect of, the quiet, the still creeping up on a prey.
There's a lot of rest and digest.
Yeah. And then it's the sprint, the attack, but it's not attack mode all the time.
And I tell people that too. I mean, we have somebody sign up for 3 classes a week, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of covering myself also, but it's like, just so moving for 3 hours out of, I mean, how many hours are in a week? That's not the end. Like, signing up for 3 hours a week is not going to get you where you need to be, And so we try to teach outside of here, this is everything else you need to be doing in order to actually see the results you want to see.
So you guys have, I guess, shifted, if you will, into, would you say it's an understanding of your clients' needs, or maybe your own like personal like growth or understanding of what you feel like is best? Probably
a mix of both. And I mean, probably a growth of me actually seeing the needs that are being exposed by our clients.
Well, I'd love to hear just a little bit more about, I know we've talked a little bit about like what you guys have created there at Trinity Strength. And just to tell us a little bit more of like, even if a listener was, interested in, what we're talking about, like to explain the process of somebody who's like, looking to not necessarily compete in the CrossFit Games, but they want to be healthy. They want to exercise. They want to do it in a way that hopefully isn't, they're not getting injured, but working with a professional. How do you like work with somebody that's, getting started? Like, is there a certain recommendation or kind of onboarding, if you will?
Yeah. I mean, we have a few different options. The first thing we always do is sit down with the person, have a one-on-one almost interview like process where we just want to hear what their goals are. Why they're there. Why is that important to you? If we can find out why it's important, what got you to walk through the door that day, and really solve the problem behind the problem, that's going to be our main mission, and most of the time it ends up being related to, look, I have kids and I want to be able to run around with them and not feel out of breath, or my knees hurt when I'm chasing after them. And that's really kind of what we're want to help people with. And then from there, it's really a discussion of what do we want to prescribe for them. So we do nutrition, we do personal training, we have group classes, and we have breath work. And so it's just kind of like hearing from them, what do they really need? Some people are going to need personal training. Really, if you get down to it, personal training is going to get you where you want to be the fastest, because we can really create a plan designed just for you around your imbalances, around your issues, around your needs and goals. But if you're going to do group classes or things, we've talked about that already, then what that looks like is we still start people with personal training. We do 3 or 4 sessions with them. We begin literally teaching them how to breathe correctly again. We move into assessing their joints and how they move, because we want to educate them as well of, help them understand their own body, of where they are, what they need to work on, what they need to be careful about. And then especially if they're coming into group classes, they need to know, okay, I'm going to have to scale these movements, X, Y, and Z, to different things because I'm working on my shoulders, or I'm working on my ankles, or whatever the issue is. Because with a group class setting, there's kind of one workout, but we scale it indefinitely for what the needs are of each person.
Sure. Part of this podcast, we want to get more into talking about breath. Right. Breath work. And I doubt that's a common conversation in an interview with the owner of a fitness gym.
Yeah.
And so
hopefully it is becoming more of one.
Right. So we're going to take a break and hear a word from our sponsor, but then we're going to come back and hear that really dive all into the breath and how you guys incorporate breath into working with your clients, just the story behind that, and really give us, our listeners, some practical steps on what things they can be on the lookout for and what they can do to improve on their breathing, why that's important.
Stay Healthy Knoxville is sponsored by Simply Physio, a physio clinic that equips and empowers you to live your life to the fullest so that you can enjoy the things you love to do and be the person you are made to be. Simply Physio specializes in helping people get back to a healthy and active lifestyle, living free from pain and medication and avoiding unnecessary surgery. Stay tuned until the end of the episode to receive a special gift from Simply Physio and enjoy listening to the rest of the episode.
Hey guys, we're here for the second half of the podcast, and we're talking all things breath. So I'm here with Zack Kramer with Trinity Strength, and where we left off really was understanding like how in the world did you get interested in breath? That's not really necessarily a normal, topic. It seems like in the fitness or gym scene.
It's funny. Somebody else asked me this the other day, and I realized that looking back, I remember sitting in front of like our Windows 98 computer when I was maybe 9 or something and hitting the clock on there and seeing how long I could hold my breath for. And I have no idea, but that just like came back to me when people started asking me about like how I got into it. Anyways, fast forward however many years, probably about 4 years ago is when I really started getting into it a lot more. And kind of a trending name out there is Wim Hof. I heard him on a podcast describe kind of what he does, and the Iceman, like many people who are kind of into this now, he was their intro, and I mean, he's done a lot for it. It's awesome. So I had already been doing, some, I guess you would say, spiritual practices like meditation and things like that.
Sure.
So once I heard about the Iceman, Wim Hof, and kind of his thing, I started looking it up, read about how to do his breathing practice, which is essentially an ancient form of breathing practice called Tumo breathing. But I started doing that, and it was kind of crazy how much it helped with meditation. It really, really stills your mind. It's very intense and then very stilling. And I fell in love with that practice basically. So started doing that quite a bit. And from there, I don't know if I can really even remember the next step, but just getting more and more into it and finding out more through the internet, just looking up to see what was out there, as does anybody. Search it on Instagram or something. But really started to find kind of like the people who are really taking it seriously scientifically. There's another method out there called Buteyko method, and a book called Oxygen and Advantage, which that really took the next step for me, really looking at how top coaches in the world were using it for high performers, from Olympic sprinters to all these different people, pulling it all the way back the other direction to helping people with asthma and COPD. So going through that book, just learning a little bit more. And then that's when I began looking into, okay, who's actually teaching this stuff, and began taking certifications and growing from there. And every time I'd learn something new, I'd begin practicing that in my own exercise, my own routine, always kind of self-experiment before I bring it to anybody else, self-experimenting with all this stuff, and realize like, man, this is so overlooked and so powerful for just performance, helping you feel better, for especially today, anxiety and stress. All those different facets started to come together, and I just began to realize how important it was, and slowly began bringing it into the gym from there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I was, I don't know how I got introduced to Wim Hof, but I didn't quite dive down at the depths that you have. So I'm really interested in our conversation here today. And, PT school, we go over breath and breathing, and I feel like it was a little bit weak though. Like I've had to do like more, as I've seen the impact that it's made, with my, clients too, as far as just from a rehabilitation, type perspective. And I came to your breath workshop a few weeks ago, and
thanks for coming.
Right. It was, and I learned a lot, through that too, of just different aspects, different, ways of looking at, breath and, some of the exercises that we went through.
I'd be curious, you mentioned kind of like seeing more of its importance in your clientele. What have you seen, I guess, like what stuck out to you that makes you think more about it?
My looking for like breath dysfunction is expanded, some, and seeing its ability to really impact most people. Very, basic from looking at like what muscles, somebody's using. Just, typically we are looking at it in just like a resting state. So not necessarily like in an exertion, level, but, how is like resting rate, breathing, what muscles are people using, and what happens when people are under stress? Like a lot of conditions, are pain conditions, pain dominant is very much influenced, by stress and how people carry or manage, stress in the body. Or, mental stress affects, physical
absolutely.
stress, and even how that changes breathing, patterns, you mentioned, when you're anxious, worried and such, and oxygenation, of the muscles. And so, we see it even just like if I'm working with somebody and they're very reflexive, like if I'm, doing some hands-on work and like their tissue is just very tonic, just very, wound up, that's oftentimes the technique I'll do is like, hey, let's, instead of me just pushing harder and fighting your tone, like when your body's like producing some degree of protection and pain, ultimately pain is your body's way to protect you, right? So if I'm trying to push harder into this pain, your body's going to fight back more into wanting to protect it, and we're just fighting fire with fire. So instead, started looking like, hey, how can we, like, instead of just kind of be at odds, how can we use the body through even breath to reduce tone? Like, can I have some pressure on a spot and, some mild pressure, and then let's go through some diaphragmatic breathing just to reduce tone. And more times than not, it allows us to, work further into the area without fighting each other.
Yeah, we'll do that with, like after every workout in our classes, we'll have some sort of cool down or recovery. Might just be foam rolling, something just to bring the heart rate back down a little bit before you leave and to loosen up something you just worked on. But we'll do that a lot, say to breathe in for 4, out for 8. And that slow exhale helps you relax into that work, whatever you're doing, whether it's a stretch with a band or foam roller, you'll begin to relax a little bit and let the tissue expand a little bit more.
As you've gotten into this understanding of breath, tell us more about how you see its importance, like in like physical performance or exercising, and how you guys incorporate it in that regard.
Yes, like I said, if you become like literally the first thing we'd do in a personal training session or an evaluation is have you lay on the ground. I don't know, is that how you kind of usually see people breathing, laying on the ground?
Yeah, I would try not to tell them I'm watching them breathe.
Right. Well, that's what it's always awkward. Like I kind of have to tell them that's what we're doing,
Right.
because if they just come into a gym, I'm like, okay, lay down. I'm just going to watch you for 2 minutes.
Right. It's a little
just
different.
Lay there. I'm going to watch you for a while. I think people will be like, what? Where did I come to? But so, yeah, we'll have them lay down, watch their breathing, assess them a little bit. And then from there, we'll begin trying to teach them how to breathe with their diaphragm. Because honestly, since we've incorporated this into our fundamentals, our personal training at the very beginning when they join, I'd say 90% of people cannot breathe with their diaphragm, at least on the first day. And the way we do that, I mean, you can do this sitting, standing, laying down at home. I mean, you just put a hand on your chest, hand on your belly, and just start cueing yourself to only breathe by moving the hand on your belly, no movement in the hand on your chest. Kind of like the most basic step to begin the process of breathing correctly. So we'll take them through that and begin really trying to increase the amount of breath they're taking in. So they're really focusing on using their diaphragm to breathe, have them do it sitting, have it do it standing, because it gets harder and harder as you go. The more weight you're supporting, the harder it gets. So that's like the most basic place we start, is just how to breathe using your diaphragm. And then as far as like you asked, going into sports performance, it kind of splits off into lots of directions from there, from just how you breathe to hold a heavy weight, how you breathe when you're doing lots of repetitions of different movements, to how you breathe when you're doing long, slow endurance. So it kind of splits off, and we try to teach each of those different things as we go.
When somebody's coming in, or I'd imagine this isn't necessarily on the radar, for people, expectations maybe, coming in, where if somebody, asks you, is like, hey, like I breathe every day, all the
Right.
time. I'm breathing right now.
Yeah.
Why do I need to work on my breath?
Well, usually we clear that up pretty quickly. If I'm having a discussion, it's one thing, but if I'm getting to be there training them, it's a different thing, because once I have them lay down and I say, okay, only move the hand on your belly, not the hand on your chest, you immediately get some wide open eyes of surprise, because people don't realize how hard that is. For the vast majority of people who come through, especially by the time they're standing and they're trying to do it, they can't do it. It takes a lot of focus and effort to do it. And I mean, really, it's trying to quote unquote wake up your diaphragm after not using it in so long. It's like trying to move just your fourth toe, like you just have to somehow figure out how to connect your brain to that muscle. And it's just not happening. So if we say it's important and then we have them go through that and they realize they can't do it, usually it starts to get a little bit of buy-in from that person. If I'm discussing with somebody and they say that, usually I'll kind of just go into the effects of over breathing, which is just breathing more than you need to, and usually go into just how that affects you really with your stress levels. So just to explain that a little bit more, like if you were to tell somebody to take a deep breath, like somebody's stressed out, you tell them take a deep breath. Usually what you'll see is like a huge in and out the mouth, shoulders, chest, big breath. Then I'll usually ask them, okay, what does somebody that's hyperventilating look like? How do they breathe? And it's the same thing, right? Big breath in and out the mouth, in and out the chest, and teaching people that breathing like that creates stress also. So it goes back and forth. If you breathe like that, you're going to be more stressed out. If you're more stressed out, you're going to breathe like that. And then kind of teaching them how to breathe properly relaxes you instead of stressing you out all the time.
Oftentimes I'll even just talk more anatomically, because people, usually have some sense and awareness that they need to strengthen their core, right? And a lot of people, what that means to them is probably need to do some crunches, maybe some planks, and maybe get on some sort of balance ball, and I've got my core, right? I strengthen my core, and just explaining to them like the anatomy. We got the abdominal musculature, through the front. The deep abdominal musculature is really more of the core. We got some of the deep lumbar musculature, like that's the front and the back, right? But
I tell people that every single, I can't remember the number. It's like 26,000 breaths a day or something. Every single breath is a rep for if you're thinking about core strength. One really cool way to do that is if you have somebody just take as much air in as humanly possible, they'll realize how much their core is involved. It'll force you to use your diaphragm to pull in that air. And then you tell them to squeeze out as much. It really works if you've ever done cat-cows. It works really well in a cat-cow position. Did we do that?
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah.
But have you squeeze out as much air, wring all the air out as much as possible, and you'll realize how much you use your abs to squeeze out air. And then on a much more minor level, every breath is using the diaphragm and then squeezing it out with your abs.
Yeah, and most people just don't even recognize that the diaphragm is one of the core muscles, right? That, and also the pelvic floor is, really the foundation or the base, and the diaphragm's the roof. And people just, think about the abs and maybe the back, too, as far as being your core, and forget the other two regions.
Well, and you see that a lot too with all the back issues. I'm sure you see that too. It always ends up coming out with the front of the core being weak. It ends up in the back. People always feel like, I've got to make my back stronger. Really, you're probably breathing incorrectly. Your core is not as strong as it should be to support your back.
Yeah, interested in actually when you're exercising. So I understand you guys, take through some kind of base understanding of, hey, we need to cue the diaphragm. We need to work the diaphragm. Starting off lying down, can you do it as you're progressively getting more vertical? So where do you take it from there?
Yeah, it kind of depends what type of exercise we're going to do. So if we go into, heavier loads lifting, we're going to talk more about bracing. So we're going to talk about taking a breath in, starting to exhale, but holding that breath. So you really create that tension within, kind of between your ribs and your pelvic floor. You're really creating a lot of tension there to hold the weight. Say, for instance, a squat as you go down and up. Then you'd breathe at the top, recreate that brace down and up. Another way we talk about the same thing for lifting weights would be just, can I breathe in this position? So once we teach people how to breathe with their diaphragm and they begin to feel what that's supposed to be like, if we're doing a squat or any kind of movement, we might cue them to say, okay, can you still breathe using your diaphragm at the bottom of the squat? And if they can't, usually it's a sign that you're overarching, or we're doing something weird with our back and pulling ourselves out of that kind of postural alignment like you talked about earlier, where you can breathe anatomically correctly. You're probably putting some stress somewhere you shouldn't be.
You might have asked, is it still taught or recommended to breathe the breathing cycle based off of the concentric versus eccentric part of an exercise?
Yeah, for the most part. So
because a lot of people maybe have some if they've had some weightlifting, right? A little understanding of that, right?
It depends a lot on the load. So if it's a much heavier load where we really want to keep that stability throughout the entire rep, we'll do that Valsalva maneuver where we create that tension, hold the tension, that breath into the belly that we keep there for the whole rep, breathe at the top. Obviously not completely just relaxed like at the top. We're still got some tension, but regaining that maneuver again and going down and up. Now, if we're doing something lighter, light squats or things like that, where we're just doing reps and reps and reps in a row, that's where you're going to time that breathing up more with breathing in on the way down. Usually I say exhale as you exert. So as you're standing up out of a squat, you would breathe out, but you wouldn't want to do that if you had a max load on you. because you're going to lose that tension.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about, mouth breathing versus nasal breathing and how that's incorporated into like your research and understanding, for general population or into the exercise crowd.
I mean, kind of long story short would be essentially 99% of the time you should be breathing through your nose. It's what helps us stay relaxed. So if we think about what it looks like to be stressed out, again, breathing in and out your mouth is going to cause that. Now, a lot of that has to do, if we go kind of all the way into kind of nerd world here and talk about carbon dioxide and levels of carbon dioxide, a lot of that has to do with carbon dioxide. If we think about carbon dioxide essentially equaling stress, just for discussion's sake, then the more we breathe out that carbon dioxide when we're mouth breathing, we get less and less tolerant to it because we're used to really, really low levels of carbon dioxide. We're essentially making ourselves really, really used to low levels of stress. So in that sense, as soon as any sort of stress hits, we feel it immensely. We're not prepared for that buildup of CO2, that buildup of stress. So if we can breathe through our nose instead, we release a lot more CO2. We're going to increase our tolerance to the carbon dioxide. And then when stress builds up, we're more ready to handle it. Other than that, like really the times for mouth breathing are at that sprint level. We talked about earlier.
Just anaerobic.
Yeah, like anaerobic stuff. So like we talked about earlier, kind of maybe 20% of the time in your exercise regimen is that high intensity training. That's when you're going to go into that mouth breathing. And one thing we teach at our gym is a gear system where you kind of ramp up. So, first gear would be easy breathing in and out your nose, kind of even keel breathing in your nose, out your nose. The second gear would be moving more into like fast inhales and then easier exhales. So you're really bringing in some air, but then trying to still relax on the exhale. Move up another gear. You begin really breathing hard in and out your nose. Another gear from there would be where you would first breathe out your mouth. So you'd breathe in your nose, out your mouth, and then last final gear, all out push is in and out your mouth, going for it. So that's one way that I kind of talked about how we try to kind of prescribe the intensity for the day. That's one of the methods that we'll use to kind of help people understand how should I be breathing is going to dictate how hard I'm going today. But it's amazing the more you stick to nasal breathing, how much you can move up kind of your heart rate and what you can handle just by breathing out your nose.
Yeah, you took us through that sequence there in the workshop.
Yeah.
So
it was like a recovery. We did we did it kind of going backwards, right? Or did we do both?
Yeah, I don't know how you define backwards versus forwards.
So like I'm pretty sure one of the things we did was we did intervals and then we rested in between, and during that rest we did breaths in and out our mouth, and then you did so many breaths in and out your mouth, then so many breaths in your nose, out your mouth,
sure.
And then so many breaths in and out your nose to try to pull your heart rate back down before you start again. Yeah. So you can go up the ladder and you can come back down the ladder to help you recover.
Yeah, I remember you took us through like an initial test where what is it take as big a breath as you can and then let it out as slowly as you can and see.
You crushed that.
I have a swimming background, and so I'm sure that impacted.
Usually 60 seconds is like a really good benchmark to hit, and I think you were at 58 or something.
That was close. Yeah, close to it.
Yeah.
Thank you. But
a lot of people we see, even athletes and people like that, will see hit 18.
So why don't you explain that test? Because that's something people could do just to maybe get a little assessment, self-assessment. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's totally fair. So just a carbon dioxide tolerance test. I think it originally came from the free diving community. So they were doing this stuff.
Free diving?
Free diving.
Diving. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So the free divers who, there's some amazing stuff out there. These people diving for 8 minutes on one breath. So anyways, the carbon dioxide tolerance test, essentially you want to be relaxed for a little while. You don't want to be just finishing or working out or anything like that. So nice relaxed setting. Take maybe a minute to just breathe normally, nice and relaxed. You're going to take 3 breaths. At the end of that third breath, you'll breathe in one more time fully all the way in. So you'll breathe in as much with your belly, as much with your chest, get all the air in as you possibly can. Then you're going to hit the timer and immediately start exhaling. And then you're going to exhale that air as slow as you possibly can. And if you hit like a hitch, obviously either you take a breath. If you hit a hitch, like you stop exhaling and then start exhaling again, you hit the timer. So anything that kind of disrupts that exhale, you hit the timer and that's your score.
The goal is to be around a minute, or that's a good,
that's a good benchmark. Yeah.
A good benchmark.
Sure. Sky's the limit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Like, growing up swimming, a lot of that is, is holding your breath, not breathing too much, especially like, the sprint, distances. And yeah, that was, swam, from 5 all the way up through 18, coached a little bit too. But that's something that was never like incorporated. And like, I remember thinking about it, like going through a race, like, okay, I feel like I should breathe in a certain way before I jump in the water, but I kind of played around with a little bit, but never really.
I'm sure you were building your tolerance to that carbon dioxide without really realizing it.
Right. And it sounds like how you guys, kind of in essence, working with it like through the workout.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of what I always tell people, if they actually really want to be serious about it, you got to take the month challenge where you just only breathe through your nose in and out for the whole month with any exercise you do. Kind of jump right into the deep end. Unless you're competing in the Olympics next week, you can take a month and do this. And you'll just have to scale the intensity of your workouts down to allow that. But you'll notice huge differences coming out from that.
What'd you say, even with like running?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. If you watch the top runners, whoever just broke the marathon world record, I'm pretty sure if you watch a video of him, he's nasal breathing the entire workout, the entire run.
The 5 minutes it takes him to run them.
Yeah, it's insane.
Or I guess what they average, I forgot what it is completely insane.
One of the biggest differences, if you just think about a stressed state versus a relaxed state, breathing through your nose keeps you in much more of a relaxed state. So if you're thinking about something where you want to do it correctly under control, the more you can breathe through your nose, the better it's going to be.
Yeah, I think we've gotten through, a lot of information. I did have a question. I'm not sure if this is kind of putting you on the spot a little bit.
Go for it.
Have you seen maybe in the gym, since we're in the middle of a pandemic, I don't know if you've played around or seen or had clients, that have had coronavirus and, the oftentimes complain of, breathing. I don't know if you've seen any of that.
We have not, very happily, we have not had very many people get coronavirus at our gym. Yeah. So I couldn't say just anecdotally you bring up a good question. I can think of one member now that I do want to reach out to and ask about that. But I do know respiration rates have spiked from that. One of my good friends wears a Whoop all the time, and it essentially showed him he had coronavirus before he knew it because his respiration just skyrocketed while he was sleeping without realizing it. But the tangent to that is that they actually did just do a study though that showed just in COVID news that showed nitric oxide's effect to stop the virus from replicating. And so nitric oxide is a huge chemical that you release every time you breathe in and out your nose. It's a part of our immune response inside our nose that doesn't happen if you breathe in and out your mouth. So they've shown that nitric oxide is effective to stop coronavirus from replicating. So that's kind of interesting as far as another plug for breathing in and out your nose right now.
Over the summer, came across an article talking looking at post recovery for difficulty breathing from coronavirus and looking at mobility, and they had they're referencing a physical therapy program, but looking at just how inefficient ultimately your the rib cage and the diaphragm, and working with somebody who can help free up the areas around the lower rib cage, the diaphragm, to help re-encourage proper breathing. Zach, thanks so much. This has been really fascinating. I'm sure listeners to have some things that they can practice. I love when we bring to the recording some things that they can self-test. So guys, try out the maximal inhalation, slow exhalation test and see how long.
If you want to go all in on this, then eventually you'll be led to mouth taping at night. If you want to know kind of the end run of where this will lead you, it's to taping your mouth while you sleep.
Okay, that sounds like some sort of torture.
It's just to make sure you breathe through your nose while you sleep.
Waterboarding. Water. What is it? Water.
Yeah, that's usually the thing taping that I tell people that you're going to end up doing, and then they walk away. But
it's like, all right, Zach, I think you've gone overboard.
Yeah, exactly.
You have gone off the deep end. Well, awesome. Well, we love to finish the show here with a few questions, encouraging people to get out and explore new things around Knoxville. So we'd love to hear, Zach, something on your bucket list around Knoxville, greater East Tennessee area.
I guess I've done it once, but one of my things on my bucket list is definitely, as I've had friends get more into it, is to become a mountain bike rider. This area is just has so many awesome places to get out. I just love being outside anyways, and I love riding bikes. So that's kind of my my next thing is mountain biking the area.
So you've gone once?
I've gone once over in Baker Creek and it was amazing. So
okay, awesome. Yeah, that's I started mountain biking when I was in college, and I haven't since being back up to Knoxville, I haven't really picked it back up. Partly because just the stage of life and young kids, and it takes a little while to get out to a trail, and easier to go for a run, type thing. Man, yeah, mountain biking is a lot of fun though. So next question: what is one of your favorite places to enjoy outside around Knoxville?
Well, we my family and I love the Smokies, so anytime we can get to the Smokies, we're excited to do that. Other than that, it's just anytime we can wrangle all three kids and get to a park together just to be outside. So
any particular park or
we
place
have
in the
nicknames.
Smokies?
The only problem is we have nicknames for all the park. So the one we call, I really enjoy going to the one we call Sand Park. I think it's Anchor though. Is that the one where the train and the ponds are?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Sand Park.
Okay. that little beach there, I think,
yes,
right?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. I'm interested to hear your other names.
I don't know them all off the top of my head. My wife knows them all more than I do.
Kid version and nicknames of the parks. Yeah, nice. Yeah, we've actually went out. You can do mountain biking real close by to there over at kind of right next to the cove, like the bridge over there. But it's a fun spot to take kids.
We went over there. The
hike.
lights are on.
Okay,
all the lights out of the cove, so we went out to the cove and ran. And
nice. What's one of your favorite Knoxville restaurants?
I guess I would say two. One would be probably the top one is going to be Yassine's. I don't know if you've ever had Yassine's.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. So Yassine's, and then probably number two would be Abridged.
Awesome. All right. And we love to leave our listeners with your best tip or recommendation for staying healthy. And obviously we've been talking about breathing. So if we wanted to kind of take that bent.
Yeah. Probably going to say breathe through your nose.
Breathe through your nose. Yeah. Challenge yourself with the 1 month challenge.
Yeah. And the sleep world also is huge in all this. So joking aside about the taping your mouth at night, but to also make sure you're breathing through your nose at night is huge.
Zach, how can people get in contact with you if they're interested in the topic? We've talked about Trinity Strength, and if they're interested in exploring, improving their health, maybe exploring how to breathe, coinciding with fitness. What's the best people can come experience that or reach out to you?
Yeah, the easiest way is just to go to trinitystrength.org, and on the site you can kind of go to what you're interested in and fill out a form, just hit book free intro, and we'll meet you in chat.
Well, thanks so much, Zach, for coming out. Thank you so
much for having me. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed this topic.
I appreciate it.
So thanks again, and stay healthy, Knoxville.
Thank you for tuning in to the Stay Healthy Knoxville podcast, brought to you by Simply Physio. If your pain is preventing you from staying healthy and active, and you'd like to avoid surgery, pain medicine, or just want to get back to doing the things you love in and around Knoxville, we offer both a free ebook and free over-the-phone consultation to help you figure out the root cause of your pain and the next best steps for resolving it. Find our ebooks online at simplypt.com/health-tips. There you will find ebooks for topics such as neck and shoulder pain, lower back and hip pain, knee pain, and TMJ. These quick-to-read reports will provide you with expert tips, tricks, and exercises to help solve your pain from the comfort of your own home. Just visit simplypt.com/health-tips to download your ebook and have it delivered directly to your inbox. We also offer free, no-obligation phone consultations with a doctor of physical therapy to Knoxville area residents. Just call us at 865-351-0615 or visit us at simplypt.com and click the Talk to a PT button on the home page to schedule a call with us. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time on the Stay Healthy Knoxville podcast.